folktale from Kenya.
It was about this, I think a lion, I forgot the name in Swahili, but it was a lion or hyena, and the lion lied that the lion got a bull, which is a male cow, and the hyena got a cow, which is a female cow, and the lion lied that, the cow got a baby, gave birth, and the lion lied and said, oh look, my male gave birth, and then the hyena thought it was suspicious, so the lion kept on threatening other animals when they were trying to figure out the case.
Okay, who wants to tell us how the case was solved?
So, when all the other animals, they were threatened and they got scared of the lion, but then a rabbit came, and the rabbit was so jolly, so it did not get scared, and so he was really smart, and so he said that the case was, the lion said that the bull gave birth, but then the bunny said, but I have to go quick, it's because I have to go help my father that gave birth. And then the lion gave himself away, and he said, a male cannot give birth. So then the case was solved because he said that the bull gave birth, but a bull is a male, and males don't give birth.
Yeah, that's how he gave himself away. He was very smart.
You are a liar.
So that is very nice to hear you summarize it very well, because it means you are actually paying attention. So today we're going to read a bit of a different story, which is still from the same book. This book has stories in Nyakole, but in this book, I read it in English, although the stories are in Nyakole. But they are saying that if an animal or a chicken or whatever has not yet been slaughtered, you cannot think it's your meat.
What's the matter?
Like if a chicken or whatever. So basically, like saying if it's not finished, you cannot count it that it's finished. So let's see what we will learn from there. So a long time ago, some shepherds were tending goats. They took them to an area rich in pasture, but unfortunately, towards midday, the weather suddenly changed. A torrential downpour, that's a lot of rain, forced them to take the goats home. Due to the stormy rain, strong winds, and fog, Kitanga, one of the goats, and its two young kids, lost their way home and took refuge in a nearby rock, which happened to be a leopard's lair. It's a leopard's home. As Kitanga was entering the lair, it came face to face with the leopard, which had been desperately lying in wait. In the face of its ominous encounter, Kitanga, thought frightened to the core, kept its cool as it could hardly retreat now. Kitanga waited its fate. The leopard was thrilled at this self-delivered meal, and it welcomed Kitanga and its kid with an ominous greeting. You're welcome. How are you, my supper for the night? Kitanga summoned the courage to respond to the leopard with a cryptic reply. We're fine, thank you, mister. Things get tough as the meat reaches the mouth. The leopard paused, puzzled, trying to decipher the meaning of Kitanga's reply. He called him Mr. Things Get Tough as the meal reaches the mouth. Having been standing all this time, Kitanga and his kids decided to lie down near the rock's entrance and started to chew the cud, as the leopard trained its eye on them, still going over Kitanga's impudent answer to its greeting. As Kitanga continued to chew the cud, the leopard asked, "What exactly are you chewing, as I don't see any food around?" Kitanga replied, "I am chewing ignorance." Puzzled even further, the leopard asked, "Where is this ignorance?" Kitanga replied that it kept ignorance in its shelf at home, known as Mperayayo. So this fictional shelf was a hint to its kids that when they get a chance to leave, they should not return. As Mperayayo, the name of the shelf, means I will not return. The leopard then asked Kitanga whether it too could partake of this perpetual ignorance, which would spare it having to hunt all the time. Kitanga immediately offered to help and said that it could send its kids to fetch their ignorance for the leopard, which they readily agreed to the proposal. Kitanga instructed its kids with a wink to go home and bring its ignorance from the shelf at home for it to pass on to his friend the leopard. The kids caught on to the message, the hidden meaning of this instruction, and having followed the earlier grim exchanges between their mother and the leopard, were in no doubt that they were leaving their mother in danger but should not return. As the kids approached home, they met their master and his party, who had set out to look for the missing goats. The master directed the goats homeward, then followed their trail back, which led them to the leopard's lair. Kitanga was still lying at the rock's entrance, chewing the cud, and the leopard still had its eyes glued on the goat, fully prepared to pounce on it and eat it later that evening if the kids had not brought back the ignorance. So, the master and his escorts lost no time in spearing the leopard dead, thus rescuing the wise goat. It is said that an animal which has not yet been slaughtered is not meat. The leopard celebrated his conquest too early with his welcoming greeting to Kitanga and her kids as they stumbled into his lair. The moral of the story. Do you want to tell me what you think the moral of the story is?
Don't get too cocky.
What?
Cocky.
What's cocky?
Like when you're like overconfident.
Oh.
Yeah, he was so confident. As soon as he saw the goat and the two babies, said, "Oh, welcome, my supper."
Don't jump to conclusions.
Don't jump to conclusions. It's not yet slaughtered, it's not meat.
How to explain? Don't. I'll forget it.
Use your common sense.
A bit of common sense. Who used common sense in the story?
The goat.
But the leopard didn't.
The leopard didn't.
How can you capture ignorance?
Yes. Yes.
Don't ask for like a lot of stuff. Oh yeah.
I think the leopard was a bit greedy.
Yeah, really did.
Yeah, you already spoke. Anybody want to get okay, last one?
Don't celebrate too early.
Don't celebrate too early. So the moral of this story, it's Kitanga was the wise goat. And you see how he kept telling his kids through like coded messages. Now the kids, the little goats, have to pay attention. If they didn't understand what they were being told, they may never have survived. So the lesson is that in the face of so many challenges and difficult circumstances, you can use your courage, your tact, and some patience. Like being tactful, like you think of clever ways to solve something. Yes.
What does the goat represent in most like African stories? Because you said the body represents like cleverness and
Turtle wise.
Well, I don't know if there is any specific representation of the goat.
Because it sounds like to me like the goat should also be kind of wise and true.
Was quite wise and quite clever.
Yeah, so.
Like a mix between funny and true.
Yes, you're right. So,
He's courageous.
the lighter lesson to be learned is that it's never, you don't really, it's not over, don't give up hope. Because
God or goat?
goat,
Is
the
it
goat, the goat. Don't give up hope and don't be celebrating too early because things can turn. Any questions?
So when they brought ignorance, what was it actually?
Well, ignorance, the goat used the word ignorance was trying to give a message to the kids. You know how animals like cows and goats and all those animals that eat grass, sometimes they sit back, they put it in one of their stomachs, then they bring it back and chew it.
what?
So they call it chewing the cud. So he was actually chewing cud. But leopards don't do that, so they don't know it. So he was chewing back the grass that he ate during the day, he brings it back and chews it further. So when he sat and started chewing, when she sat and started chewing cud, the leopard thought, where did you get food? You're just sitting there and you're eating something. And he's chewing cud, but that's why he said, I'm chewing, it's called ignorance. Then he said, where do you keep it? He said, I keep it on my shelf. And his shelf, but his shelf was, the shelf was called never come back. He used the word that means never come back, but he was giving a message to the babies. And when they go, they don't come back. So the leopard was a little bit like ignorant because he doesn't know that animals, goats and those grass-eating animals chew cud, like they can bring back food. But he thought, if you give me part of that ignorance, I never need to hunt again, I can just always chew on it.
Why did
What was the goat called again in Nyankole?
Kitanga.
why did they eat her? Why did they eat?
Cud.
Yeah.
When they're eating, they chew really quickly. You know, they say that the goat has many stomachs. So they chew really quickly and they swallow the grass. And then later, they go sit down and they bring it back to their mouth and chew it a bit further.
That's good.
That's, if that's normal for them.
But if you already ate it, what's the point of chewing?
It seems disgusting.
Do you think
but
it's like normal?
It's like
Which you don't have-
when you swallow something and then after like 2 hours later, it vomits back out, but it's still.
They do that. They do that. They do that.
Never just happened to me.
it just happens because they chew it further because it's already mixed with some digestive juices. They chew it even because grass is really hard to chew. If you see a goat or a cow or a sheep, when they're just sitting down after, like at the end of the day, they chew. They keep chewing. So you're going to read about, they just bring back the grass and chew it further.
If you already ate it, what's the point of chewing it again?
No, because like they eat it really fast and like
They don't get time to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just a design that God made that they just chew it
No,
further.
they ate it too quickly. Like, you know how your parents like say like those chasing after you.
But you guys should go read about herbivores chewing cud. Yes, Maria.
No.
What does slaughter mean?
What does?
Slaughter.
I thought you said that at the
I
start.
think
Like when you
it's not like a word for killer.
you know, like a chicken that is in the supermarket. You buy it from the supermarket.
Yeah.
You buy it in the supermarket, but before it was a living, running chicken.
I know.
So you have to get it, somehow kill it, remove the feathers, and make it ready to cook. That is slaughtered.
Wait.
Another question actually about the goat and cud. Is it because like the way they chew as well? Like they chew like this, maybe they don't chew it properly.
It's a grinding motion.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe they don't eat it properly when they chew it.
when they're just eating the grass in the field, they don't eat
They
it
just
fully.
go like,
They just like get better stuff. No, I'm just saying that like they save it for later. Just, like,
Yeah, they say
I'll eat it later.
skeletons.
Yeah, it
I
has something
see
else.
It does something like that.
But the stomach of a cow or goat is designed to have different compartments. What has not yet been fully chewed
And also
is
taste.
stored somewhere.
For them it
And
does.
believe me, for those animals, it's not disgusting.
It's gourmet food, it's Gucci.
They just, if you one day go look for some videos on YouTube, you'll see that it brings back.
Also like this back.
Yeah, also invertebrates.
Also like
It's like recording
Yeah.
CDs.
Okay, if there are no other questions, what did you like the story?
Yeah.
So, if you have already chosen what book you're going to borrow, you can just bring it and I record it. You put it in your bags, and then we're going outside to learn some skip